Hello, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my review of The Secret Life of Pets 2. So, The Secret Life of Pets 2 is directed by Chris Renaud and stars Patton Oswalt, Eric Stonesworth, Kevin Hart, Denny Slate, and Harrison Ford. So the story is about Max, who ended up going on this road trip with Clem and the entire family, and then, while Snowball ends up trying to have to save this tiger from his abusive circus owner, and as well as Gidget trying to protect this ball at the same time, which is kind of the story. And yeah. So for positives, Max does have a pretty good character in this movie. He does develop pretty well with his owner, as well as Liam. I really like that the relationship is pretty well done, as he's pretty overprotective and is developed pretty well with this new character Rooster as well. It just develops really well. Rooster just kind of help a little bit and then what he does, and I kind of like that development and how he's just kind of protective, and then kind of just develops to just kind of let him do what he wants. It's pretty well done for what it is. And then this new character called Rooster is pretty good for what he is. He's pretty good, as he does help Max, and is pretty good as that kind of a character, and is pretty good as that kind of influential character, and I think he was pretty good for what he is, and he's done pretty well. And Snowball is actually a pretty good character, even as he does kind of this iconic relief with all this Captain Snowball stuff, which it doesn't really work sometimes for the joke part of that, but either way, I do kind of like how his character is written, as it does kind of have the Captain Snowball thing, which kind of develops his character, and as well as develops with his owner that he got at the end of the first movie, which is pretty good for how it's developed, and I really like how it's done. And the voice acting is really great, like Patton Oswalt, Eric Stoneworth, all did pretty great when they returned. Then there's Harrison Ford is new to the cast, and he did great, and as they all do, and kind of match their characters and does really well with their voice acting. And Gidget's a pretty decent character. I mean, there's some parts of her character that doesn't really work, but I do think as the kind of relationship with Max does kind of work. Again, this kind of turning into the cat type of thing was pretty good, but honestly, other than that, her character is not very good. But that's just community. She's just decent at best. The animation is really great in this movie. I mean, they have the character designs, which are pretty good, and I think they look a lot like dogs and pretty well designed. And then, obviously, each Illumination movie does have the same type of character designs, and then I really like that. It kind of makes the studio pretty unique. I don't really care if they just keep the same animation style, because it just kind of works all the time. And as well as the background designs are pretty good, like the city of New York looks pretty great, and as well as the farm looks really great, and there's also just the apartment buildings inside are pretty good. I really like it's pretty good how it looks. With that said, there are plenty of negatives with this movie. Like, the story is just an incoherent mess. I mean, it doesn't really have one consistent story, and it doesn't really work for it, because there's just a lot of subplots in it, so it's not really one consistent story throughout, and then just kind of feels like a TV show, kind of, because it does kind of throw in a bunch of subplots at once, and it doesn't really make it a consistent story, and it's just very bad in how it's done. Then the plot in this movie, like I said, is just a bunch of subplots. I mean, the first act is decent, I guess. I mean, it does pretty well done with expressing how everything that came, but the second act is where the second and third acts are where it's like a huge mess, especially the second act. That's where like the three different subplots are stuffed in at once, like Max's plot on the farm, as well as Snowball's plot trying to rescue a tiger, as well as Gidget's plot with the ball, and it just is just kind of stupid. I mean, pretty much one of those, at least a stupid subplot, but it just doesn't really work. Just trying to stuff in that many plots into one act doesn't work. And the third act just felt a bit rushed and was just kind of a poor excuse to connect all three subplots together. And it doesn't really work very well, and how it is, and it really doesn't connect that well with the rest of the film, and just feels really rushed. And as I mentioned, there's the structure of this movie just does not work. I mean, I've already mentioned it before. First act just kind of just explains what happened, and then second act, a whole bunch of messy subplots. Third act's just kind of a drawn-out chasing. And it's it, and there's really nothing else to it. It's structured. It's nothing. It's really nothing that special. I mean, it's really complex, which and just messy. Nothing else. I mean, complex structures can work, but not when it's like a completely messy plot, and doesn't really make any sense for the film. And then the pacing of this movie is just god-awful. I mean, with all the filler in this movie, it feels like it's much longer than an hour and 45 minutes. It definitely did not feel like an hour and 45 minutes watching this movie. And most of that is because of all the subplots, like I keep mentioning. But even without those, there are a few other scenes that make it feel like it's much longer than an hour and 45 minutes, which makes it poorly paced. You may already recall how I called Gidget's character decent. I gotta get to the bad parts of her character. I did mention I did kind of like how that cat thing works. I mean, it was pretty creative and a decent way to develop a character, but the other part of her character, like the whole protect the ball thing, just makes her character pretty weak. I mean, there's really nothing else to her character. She just kind of has to just protect the ball on nothing else. And that was obviously played out for a joke, and it doesn't really work for it. And it's just a really bad character, how this shit's done there. And this, her development in her relationship with Max is not really developed very much, and just is basically similar to the original, how she just has to save his ass, and there's nothing else to it. Then there's Chloe in this movie, who does not feel like a good character at all. I mean, she's just a really bad character. I mean, there's really nothing to her character besides just trying to chunk in insult and a bunch of jokes that aren't really funny, so it kind of makes her character bad. And her character is just basically the only really good thing she did in this movie is just, like I already mentioned, a bunch of jokes that she tries to put out, and as well as how she tries to teach Gidget how to be a cat. And it's basically the only real character she has, and it's stupid character. I mean, there's nothing else to her character in this movie, and it's really bad and terrible how it's done. And because it doesn't really develop her from the original, and it's just not well done. And the main villain, the circus owner, is just nothing special. I mean, there's really nothing to him. He's just kind of uses the tiger and there's just wants to run a circus. That's basically the only reason why he's a villain. He doesn't really have any intentions and isn't really intimidating. It's just he's just a terrible villain and isn't really good at all, and just feels like they just kind of put him in there because they realized they need a villain in this movie and really nothing else because of how poorly written it is. And the humor is just really unfunny. There's really not a single good joke put out. There's so many jokes in this movie that just fall flat and is just completely unfunny. I mean, like, most of it's just a bunch of kids humor that it's, like, impossible to laugh at. And then there's also a bunch of slapstick humor that doesn't really work. And a lot of the jokes are just kind of insults to other animals that isn't really that funny at all. And doesn't really have a chuckle at all to me. So overall, The Secret Life of Pets 2 is a very mediocre film and is significantly worse from the original. And I'm going to give The Secret Life of Pets 2 a 5 out of 10. That was my review of The Secret Life of Pets 2. What are your thoughts on The Secret Life of Pets 2? Tell me in the comments below. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.